For this first question, we have two inequalities that we are going to solve separately. We're going to graph separately and then analyze this word or right here to see what the final graph will look like. On the left, we're going to solve it by subtracting 9 from both sides. Subtract 9, that gives us negative 30 is greater than w. On the second one, we're going to divide by negative 5. Divide by negative 5, and we end up with w. Switch the sign because we divided by a negative number. Is less than or equal to positive 5. So the two numbers that we are comparing to are negative 30 and positive 5. The conjunction is or, so we're going to keep that. So or right here. Our first graph, the solutions, the w's are supposed to be the smaller number. Open circle because we're not allowing it to be equal to, so we have an open circle here at negative 30, and we're going to go over to the left to find our smaller numbers. On this one, we have our solutions, and they are the smaller numbers again. So we're going to have a closed circle here at 5, closed because we're allowing it to be equal to, and we're going to shade over here to the left. Now, since the conjunction is or, we are going to accept either of these as a solution. So this area works, and this one does not. So our final graph is this closed circle here, and we just shade all the way. We do not need that open circle anymore because we're shading through it. And that's our final graph. This one is an AND statement because they are combined together to form a single expression like this. We're going to split that up into two and then solve them separately. So we're keeping the middle. It's shared between the two. There's our first inequality there. That would be negative 26 is less than 1/3 times 3x minus 21. And we're ignoring this inequality for that first one. And then the second one that we're dealing with is over on the right-hand side, and we are going to keep the middle and ignore this left-hand side there. So this is not part of it. We end up with 1/3 times 3x minus 21 is less than 18. And the conjunction that connects those two is and. So we're going to solve these by distributing, and we get negative 26 is less than, that would be x minus 7. Finish this out by adding 7. We end up with negative 19 is less than x. Same over here, we're going to distribute. That gives us x minus 7 is less than 18. Finish this out by adding 7. Adding 7, we get x is less than 25. And the conjunction again is and. So for this first one, we go negative 19. Our x is supposed to be bigger. So we've got an open circle, and we're going to graph to the right. On this other one, we've got 25, our open circle, and our solutions are supposed to be smaller, so we're going to go over to the left. Now, if we kept going with both of these arrows, it would cover the whole number line, but with this particular one, the and tells us that it has to fit both solutions. So these two areas only fit one of those two inequalities, but this area in the middle fits both of them. So our final graph will look like this in between the two open circles, and that is it. We keep the circles open because it doesn't work. The open circle shows us it doesn't work for that particular one, so we're going to not accept it as a solution due to the and. All right, next we're going to solve these separately, so we're going to distribute. 9 times 18 is 162, and we get 9 times negative b, which is minus 9b, and we have 16 over on this side. We're going to finish this out by subtracting 162, and then we'll divide. Subtract 162. 16 minus 162 gives us negative 146. It's greater than or equal to negative 9b. Finish this out by dividing by negative 9. We end up with b by itself on that side. We are going to flip the sign because we just chose to divide by a negative number. And on the other side, it's 16.2 repeated forever, or you could leave it as a fraction if you wish. On this next one, we're going to distribute the 1/3. That gives us 5b minus 4 is greater greater than or equal to 21. Add that 4 to both sides. We end up with 5b is greater than or equal to 25. Finish this out by dividing by 5 on both sides, and we have b is greater than or equal to 5. So here we go. We get 5 on that side, and over here we get, from this one we get 16.2. All right, this one we say our solutions are supposed to be bigger than the 16.2. They are also allowed to be equal, so closed circle there. We're going to shade off to the right to find our bigger ones. And right here we have b is greater than or equal to 5, so again a closed circle, and we're going to shade off to the right. Okay, now this one is an AND statement. AND means it has to fit both solutions. So these are not solutions clearly. These are not solutions because they fit one inequality but they do not fit both. These is the area with our solutions because it fits both inequalities. So for our final graph, we're going to erase this portion of it, and that would be what we're left with. So we're just going to start with this closed circle and shade it over to the right. That would be our final graph. On this story problem, our task is to write a compound inequality that represents the heights of skiers that a ski shop does not service. That does not is important. The ski shop, we know from the rest of the question, sells skis between 130 and 250. That means that it does not sell skis outside of that range, so from 130 to 250 centimeters. This area is what they have, so they can service those. These areas out here are what they do not service. Open circle there because they have the 130 and the 250. Now, we need to think about the heights of the skiers. And so currently we have the heights of the skis, so we need to transfer that to the skiers' heights. And that's where this next sentence comes into play. It says, the shop says the length of the skis should be about 1.6 times a skier's height. So if we go from the height of the skier to the height of the skis, then we are going to multiply by 1.16 to get that height. But we started with the skis and want to go back to the height of the skier, so we need to divide those numbers by 1.16 to transfer them over to the heights of the skiers. So that's what we're going to do with these two numbers, and that will adjust to get us the answer that we need. We need to just divide those by 1.16. So 130 divided by 1.16 is 112.06. We're just going to round that to 112. And 250 divided by 1.16 is 215.5. We're going to keep a decimal place on that, so 215.5. All right, in between there are the skiers that we can service. The question was, which can we not service? So we're going to go out here to the right and then out here to the left. All right, now that's a picture of all the skiers. From there, we should be able to write the inequalities. So let's give me some space here. The compound inequality that we get to match with this graph would be our height is less than 112. From here on the right-hand side, we get our height is greater than 215.5, and our conjunction will be or, because either one of those two would be a possible solution to this question. For the absolute value inequalities, we are going to separate it into two scenarios. Absolute value talks about the distance from 0. So this says our distance from 0 needs to be less than or equal to 12. So we're going to have over here at negative 12, positive 12, and 0 here in the middle. If our distance is less, then we are going to be closer to 0. And so we're going in between the two 12s. All of these places would be closer than 12. Since we're allowing it to be equal to 12 as well, we're going to fill in a closed circle on both of those. And we cannot get farther away, so these ends we're going to leave blank. We need to write a compound inequality to represent that. So on the left-hand side, we have from negative 12 going to the right, and here we have positive 12 going to the left. those inequalities would be represented this way. On the left, we have x is greater than or equal to -12. And on the right-hand side, we have x is less than or equal to +12. And we only want the place where they overlap in this middle area here. So the conjunction that will give us that is and. If you wish, you could choose to write this as -12 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to +12. Next, we want our distance to be greater than 9. So 0 in the middle, -9, +9, and we're going to have open circles here this time because we're not allowing it to be equal to 9. If our distance is greater than would mean that we're farther away. So we're going to go out away from the 9 here and away from the -9 that way, and those areas would get us the solutions to be farther away than 9. Now over on this left-hand side, we'd get an inequality of x is less than -9. Over on the right-hand side here, we'd have x is greater than +9. And we want both of those to be solutions because we could be over in this area and be farther away than 9, or we can be over in this area and be farther away than 9. So the conjunction that would get us that would be or. And we're going to leave it like that. Next, we've got a little bit more to think about, but I like to ignore this for just a little bit and say, all right, our distance needs to be greater than or equal to 11. So doing what we did before, we'd have +11 and -11 closed circles because we're allowing it to be equal to those two. And our distance being greater, we're going to go out away from 0 on both these ends. Now on this right-hand side, that would get us greater than or equal to 11. And on the left-hand side, we'd be less than or equal to -11. Now I left this area blank intentionally because now we have to think about the stuff that's in here. So uncovering that, we say, all right, that 9 minus 4n, that needs to be less than or equal to 11, and the 9 minus 4n needs to be greater than or equal to 11, and the conjunction that would get us those is or. All right, solving these two will get us our final solutions. So we're going to do that by subtracting 9 on this one. That would get us -4n is less than or equal to -20. Divide by -4, and we get n is less than or equal to +5. Sorry, not less than or equal to. I just divided by a negative number, so I need to switch that sign to greater than or equal to +5. On the second one, we'll subtract 9. We end up with -4n is greater than or equal to 2. Divide this by -4, and we get n, and this will be positive or -1/2, or we could write that as -0.5. Either way is fine. And again, we need to flip the sign, so we're going to go less than or equal to -1/2. So on the left-hand side, we have -1/2. That would be our left boundary, and then the right-hand side, we have +5. All right, for this one, we want to be greater than or equal to the +5, so closed circle, and we're going to go to the right to be greater than or equal to. This one, we want to be less than or equal to the -1/2, so again, closed circle, and we're going to go over to the left. The conjunction is or, so we're going to keep both of those, and that is our final graph with our two final solutions. On this one, we need to first isolate this absolute value. We cannot think through like we did just a minute ago without isolating the absolute value first. So we're going to get rid of this -3 down in the denominator by multiplying by -3 on both sides. That would give us the absolute value of 6b minus 8 is greater than or equal to, because we just multiplied by a negative number, and that would be -36. Now on this one, I am not going to set up my two scenarios. I don't need to. Here we're talking absolute value, which when we plug something in, this will end up either being a positive number or 0 at the very least. We cannot have a negative number after we take the absolute value. Since this is a negative number, that means that this over here will always be greater than or equal to that negative number. Our positive or 0 will always be greater than or equal to. So no matter what we plug in, it's going to work. That means all real numbers. And the graph, if we choose to graph it, would just be the entire number line shaded in. Since it's the entire number line, I'm not even going to put any numbers. I honestly don't really care about the graph all that much. But if you needed to graph something, then you just shade in the whole number line. And finally, we need to isolate this as well, the absolute value. So we're going to do that by adding 2 to both sides to start with. That will give us 2/3 times the absolute value of 4v plus 6 is less than or equal to 12. And we're going to eliminate this by multiplying by its reciprocal. That would be 3/2. So 3 times 2 is 6, 2 times 3 is 6. Those eliminate each other, end up being 1. Over here we're going to multiply that by 3/2 as well. And we end up with the absolute value of 4v plus 6 is less than or equal to 18. This is a positive number, so we are good to go. I'm going to set up my 2 scenarios here on this graph, and then I'm going to erase this so that I can set up my final graph. But we have our distance is greater than or equal to 18, so I'm going to go negative 18 here, positive 18 here, and our distance is less than or equal to, I think I might have said greater than or equal to a second ago. That means we're going to go in towards 0. We want our distance to be less, and we're going to have some closed circles here because we are allowing it to be equal to. Now we're going to set up our 2 scenarios here. Over on the left side, we need to go this direction, so we've got to be greater than or equal to negative 18. And on the right-hand side, we need to go that direction, so we need to be less than or equal to positive 18. Okay, let's clean this up a little bit, because now we've got to take what was in our absolute values here, the 4v plus 6, that is what needs to be greater than and less than. So 4v plus 6 goes in both of those spaces, and we now have it set up like we did before. All right, I'm going to erase this graph because that's not our actual solutions. That just got us set up to do the 2 solutions. We're going to finish solving this by subtracting 6 on both sides. We get 4v greater than or equal to negative 24. Divide by 4, and we get v is greater than or equal to negative 6. Finish this one out by subtracting 6. We end up with 4v is less than or equal to 12. Divide by 4, and we get v is less than or equal to 3. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but the conjunction that we wanted to get in between is and. So we're going to have negative 6 over here, positive 3 here. Closed circles because we're allowing those both to be equal to. We need to be bigger than the negative 6. That'll be this direction. We need to be less than the 3. That'll be that direction. And the conjunction and means we keep only where they overlap. So they're going to overlap in this in-between area, and that is our final graph. Thank you for watching, and good luck.